On this episode of Star Trek Universe, we're going on a cave mission! Hopefully our transmission will be received as we explore Lower Decks 408, Caves, right after these words from our mystery sponsors.
Welcome to Star Trek Universe, the podcast where you get to listen in on two lifelong friends just sit and chat about Star Trek. My name is Matthew Carroll.
I am David C. Roberson.
What's up, buddy? How you doing today? How you doing today?
I'm okay. I haven't slept, but I woke up really, really late. I gotta go get brakes put on my car today.
Hey, me too.
Really?
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah, a little bit of a weird coincidence.
How we living, man? What's going on?
I don't know. My brakes started grinding a few days ago, and I haven't had a chance to go until today, so
yeah,
it's going to happen. It's going to have to happen.
Is this our cave where we find people who are like us? And
No, this is not. Sorry.
Oh, okay. You're just an alien who's out to test
Your
me?
princess is in another cave. Oh, man. So, yeah, this episode called Caves, I feel like this episode is pretty great, but a lot of the greatness is just the Trek reference of how they use those caves over and over, and the fact that every time they cut back to a different cave mission, it's the exact same cave with this time it has vines on it, this time it has a weird rock in the middle. It's really, really great. It's pretty awesome. And that it was neat using that old trope of how enemies become friends when they're trapped in the cave to give them sort of this jealousy over each other's relationships. It was fun. It was a good time. Good, well structured, solid episode.
I agree, and it is great to see all of them together, because I feel like we haven't gotten a ton of that this season. We've kind of had them off in their own trajectories. Everyone's kind of off doing their own thing. Maybe a couple of them teamed up in an episode,
I got that. I heard them say that at the beginning of the episode, and I was like, I don't feel that way, but maybe I just haven't noticed. I have heard people say that we haven't as many Boimler-centric episodes as we have in the past.
He's definitely not, yeah.
Yeah, Boimler hasn't been as... Some people were speculating his, other shows or, making him not be able to be the main protagonist. He's been a lot of the B-plots in a lot of these episodes.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, that's understandable. But, weren't they... I feel like... I guess I didn't even notice that they hadn't all four been together that much. Because they said that at the beginning of the episode, and I was like, have you not? It's felt so lower decksy around here. Didn't I guess I'm used to them. They often split up to do different parts of a mission or whatever. So I guess I hadn't noticed that maybe they've been going for that all season, and I just I was too thick to notice.
Yeah, I think they went a little harder than they normally do, but it was a little bit of a reach.
Yeah.
But they established it pretty well at the beginning of the episode that they haven't. So
yeah,
I'm willing to let it fly.
Yeah, for sure. But I like they kind of justify the whole concept that all caves look the same by saying, all caves look the same because, and then the Rutherford together say, they're all made by soluble minerals or something.
Yep.
Like that.
Yeah, that was great.
It's really good. It's just such a silly concept and such a wonderful little reference to more the production side of Trek than anything.
Yeah. I do because of, like you were saying with the enemies becoming friends in the cave. Mm-hmm. It was nice to see the friends becoming enemies in the cave, reversal, and then swinging back around to them becoming friends again. Mm-hmm. And I feel like this is, we've got 2 more episodes left this season. It feels like the next 2 are going to be heavily dealing with the ship, probably the mystery ship.
Let's hope so, because I feel like wrapping all that up in one episode seems like it's probably would be a little rushed.
Maybe.
And who knows? Maybe they won't wrap it up. Maybe we'll find out a big piece of the puzzle in the last episode, and then next season we'll have to deal with the repercussions, which they do like doing a little bit of a cliffhanger at the end of these seasons.
Yeah.
But so of the three, I guess four, but really three cave stories. What was your favorite cave story?
Oh, definitely Boimler's.
Oh yeah, Steve Levy. Getting to know Steve Levy. Mine too. Just all the weird references to different conspiracy theories in Trek was awesome.
Well, also just the references, period. Like the Vendorians, that is an awesome reference. That's an awesome species to bring back. I think they've done it like once before in Lower Decks, and before that we saw them once in the animated series.
Oh, is that where they originally were?
Yeah, they were they're shapeshifters, and it was from the animated series episode The Survivor. If anybody wants to go back and watch that, they are a neat species because they can shapeshift into you, and the longer they hold the form, they start to like psychically get your memories. Like the longer they do it, if they do it long enough, your personality will actually be a part of theirs. They will retain your personality or parts of it.
Interesting.
It's really interesting. They're an interesting species, but on that animated series episode, they said that their planet was like quarantined. So like, because like everyone's like, oh no, well we can't go there. They're not allowed to come in contact with any of us because they can mimic any of us. And I don't know. I love this idea. This is a perfect race for Levy to like freak out and think is like behind everything. By the way, also the Vendorians like admitting that they like started the rumors and falsified the reports saying that warp drive harmed subspace.
That's pretty awesome.
Do you remember that from TNG?
Yeah. And then it never comes up again. Warp drive is affecting subspace. It's causing all these problems. They even create like an area where you're not allowed to go to and stuff in space. And then like we never hear about that again. So I guess this is a great retcon because it's like, oh, well now we just like know that's not true. So we don't have to worry about it anymore. We were still like kind of joking about that, like how, well, I guess just destroying subspace everywhere they go. It's pretty great.
And I love the follow-up. We did not, however, quote, do your Klingon civil war.
Yeah, it's really good. I really liked you hanging out with a guy who thinks we're in the evil mirror universe.
Yeah. I don't know. I enjoyed everything about the that's just what they want you to think.
Yeah. And then the Vendorians like wanting them to sit around and tell the stories about. They're like, get a hold of, I forget the name, but get a hold of that guy. He'll get a kick out of this.
And he's like, Levy's like, yeah, you just go into forums and we just make up, report the information we've acquired. Like, I can't remember what the Vendorian said about how, like, his tales of their people were such a delightful mixture of truth and hyperbole or something.
Truth, hyperbole, and fiction.
Yeah.
That was really good.
Yeah, totally my favorite part of that.
I like the Rutherford baby as well.
It was alright.
It's just, it like, you know, I'm glad they did all these as like one. It did feel like, hey, we got all these like little ideas for cave episodes that don't really make a full episode, and they just like threw them in. Like we got the communication with the by the way, that monster, I'm not sure, but it looked like, speaking of how all the caves are the same, it's a beginning of, I think, one of the other caves, either Boimler's cave or the actual cave they're in, I think it's in the cave they get trapped in, maybe. No. It's in Boimler's cave. When there's like the rock slide or whatever, there's like a skeleton that rolls out and crosses their paths, and I'm pretty sure it's the skeleton of that creature from the other cave.
Oh, dude, I didn't catch that.
I'm not totally sure. Like, it's a skeleton, but it looked very similar to the monster you see in the next cave, which I think was sort of a reference to the idea that they're all the same.
That is brilliant if they did that.
It's pretty great. And it's nice because it happens. It's one of those things that you won't catch a lot of times because it happens before you actually see the actual monster. But it's pretty great.
I was still geeking out about the Vendorians, honestly.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god, I can't believe they did this.
Yeah. See, I've never seen that episode, so I was just like, oh, the Vendorians, I guess that's from an episode.
Yeah, it's just a real deep cut.
Yeah. That's what they love to do, man. And half the time I understand, and sometimes I don't. Get the especially to the animated series. That's the only Trek I haven't seen all the way through.
Which is funny because in a lot of ways the animated series is one that even before Lower Decks had the most impact on
canon,
on substantiated canon. Like they introduced so many things there that they picked up in movies and TNG and DS9, and it's really interesting.
Yeah, it's really cool to see that from like the perspective of the writers who are writing the ongoing stories and say like, oh, well, it's so cool that they went back and like picked up this canon from people who are writing way back in the, I guess, 70s or whatever. When did that show run?
73 to 74 or 5, something like that.
Yeah. So just the idea that these creators are kind of working in a little more obscurity way back then and creating these races and sci-fi concepts and then like later creators came around to like make them more popular and bring them to wider audiences. It's neat.
Yeah, and in some places they actually kind of retcon things because in like the remastered Amok Time for TOS, they cut in a CGI shot of Spock's hometown on Vulcan. And we had never seen that on TOS before. They created it in CGI, but it was an exact CGI replica of Spock's hometown from yesteryear on the animated series.
That is really cool. It's really cool. That's really, really, really cool.
Well, what I thought was interesting is like, you know, Boimler doesn't like confrontation, but he had to be confrontational with Levy. We had Mariner who
That's what got him in trouble.
But he still had to be confrontational.
Yeah.
Like, he was still like willing to go there.
Shows growth for sure.
Mariner wound up, leading a group of people that she thought she didn't like and found common ground with them.
I think that's Mariner's like every week storyline. She hates this. She hates doing a thing. Well, no. It's the whole Mariner's like huffy about doing a thing, and by the end of the episode, she appreciates the experience. Like I know those people.
Yeah, somewhat.
I know people that are like that, and it's like, yeah, there are people that are just like always don't want to do a thing, feel like it's going to be no fun, and then at the end they're like, yeah, it was pretty good. Like reluctantly enjoying life.
I think that's me about 30% of the time.
Yeah, you do that sometimes for sure. You weren't the person I was thinking of, but yeah, you.
Thankfully, I think there's way more times where I'm like, that's going to be awful, and then like I'm done with it. I'm like, I was absolutely right. That was the worst.
I have friends who literally like every time try to get them to go out anywhere, they're like, no, I'm just going to be terrible, or do anything. Just do anything. They don't want to leave the house. And then you finally get them out of the house. They're every time they're leaving the social situation, they're like, man, I just love seeing my friends and doing things and blah. I'm so glad I got out of the house today. Why do I never leave? And then like a week later, hey man, we're doing this thing over here. Nah, man, I'm good. I'm right here. I'm not leaving the house tonight. Like it's just like every single time it's like drastically different reactions, you know, like no self-awareness. I just think it's that thing we've talked about before where it's just like, you never want to leave the house. Like, nobody does. But going and doing things is what you're going to remember about, like, your time. It's like those things you're going to remember and do. Like, everybody experiences it to some degree, but he's just, like this particular person I'm thinking of is just like such an extreme example.
That's funny. And me, I was just thinking about the Seinfeld bit where you're like, we're going out, let's go out. And as soon as you get out, you're like, well, gotta be heading back.
Yeah. Well, and I can't ever remember if I've talked about this idea on this show, but my concept of that now is the whole, I may have, so yeah, whatever, is the whole narrative versus experiential self. Mm-hmm. Experiential self is like, it's kind of like carnal versus spiritual that I grew up with in church, but it's like the idea that like, but these days I don't moralize it. It's like, there's the experiential self, and all that guy wants to do is like sit around and watch TV and like blah, like does not want to like do anything interesting or valiant or whatever. And then there's the narrative self that is me that wants to get out and do life. And like, it's not that I want to do any of those things. It's that I want to have done them. And so like, I have to balance my life between appeasing the experiential self and doing things I just feel like doing because it's what I feel like doing, but also building a life that I can look back on and be like, oh. And so some days I just have to go, no, experiential self you got yesterday. Today I'm going to go on a hike.
Yeah, I like going out and leaving the house and, exploring, but a lot of times I feel like I don't want to do it I don't want to like make plans because I want to do it on my own terms.
Yeah.
But I only like doing it when my wife is home, because when she's out of town, I just never go anywhere. And it's like, I think I've tried to figure out why exactly that is. And I think it's like, I don't like coming back home to an empty house. So I just stay in the empty house.
That's weird.
If that makes sense. Isn't it weird? Like, because it's just such a depressing thing to come back to the house.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah. No, that's interesting. I get that. I have been there. Like when you go out, like when your partner's out of town or whatever, and you go out and do things, then you get back and you're like, well, it's like the party's over and I'm home alone, and it almost feels worse to be home back from the party than like to have never left at all. I get that. But at the same time, if you just stay in the house all the time, you get a little stir crazy.
Oh yeah, and I totally do. Like when she leaves for a really long time, for like a week or something, like when she went to Japan for her sister's wedding for like 2 weeks, I don't even know what I was eating.
Right.
Like I was just like, rattling around the house, like picking up random peanuts. Like I don't know. Like it just got weird, and it always does because I'm just really bad at that. But
yeah,
I just get kind of weird and bummed out.
Yeah, for sure. I've definitely been there. I don't know. I get when you were first talking about the idea of leaving the house or whatever, and always wanting to, but always wanting to do it on your own terms. It reminded me of creativity, which is something that I experience a lot, where it's like, I want to be creative, but I never I don't want to plan creativity. I want to do it when the mood strikes me, like that's something that I don't know, that just jogged in my memory, but but I've learned that that's not how creativity works, really. Like you have to plan, you have to set aside time, you have to make yourself set aside a thing that you're going to be creative during this time. So that means sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes you get there and you get to the scheduled appointment and it doesn't happen. But and I think it's similar with social. It's like you got to make plans to do stuff. And sometimes you get to the point where sometimes it's almost time and you're like, I don't want to do it tonight. I'm not feeling it. It's not good. And then you bail, if you need to. But then I don't know. It's like, if you don't plan things, they just don't happen. That's the thing I'm learning more and more. With creativity, podcasting, particularly some of the shows that have rigid plans that we just do them every week at this time. Those happen really consistently, and the ones that are a little more haphazard, we're like, "Hey, we'll figure it out each week." They're less consistent,
Absolutely.
And so that's what we were even talking about this show, trying to do it every Thursday or whatever, right when these shows drop. Now that I've finally got a little time on my hands to do that.
Getting
Getting back to Lower Decks?
Getting back to Lower Decks, yes. Getting back to Lower Decks, I thought it was... I don't know what Rutherford's story was supposed to convey, that maybe he's just going to be a great dad, but or that maybe he's ready for more responsibility. I don't know, but what I thought was interesting is like each of their stories was about some adventure they had without the others, but Tendy's story was looking back.
Yeah.
With them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if that says something specifically about Tendy and her, like, you know, still holding on to that more so than the rest of them. Like that she hasn't had, or apparently hasn't had the same sort of stuck adventures in caves with random people. It's interesting. I don't know.
Or that maybe she's just looking to the past and they're all kind of pushing towards the future.
Right.
But because like she's holding on to them because they were the first friends that she had that didn't make her feel like she was an Orion first.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
A person second.
Yeah, for sure. Their friendship meant a lot to her. Or maybe it has something to do with her being sort of the peacemaker of the group.
I thought it was a good episode.
Yeah, me too. That was a great episode. It's Lower Decks. It's 22 minutes long. We're not always going to have tons. And I mean, really, this episode feels short, but it's really because we lack a very short Trek to talk about.
Well, we do have feedback.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's hear it.
All right. Well, let's see. The first piece of feedback is, I believe, in reference to our discussion last week on our news/Lower Decks 407 review. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about Trek fans being slow to embrace new ideas and fresh ways of presenting Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
And Donald May 6827 on YouTube says Star Trek fans are the most regressive when it comes to Star Trek. Maybe only superseded or maybe only beaten out by DC fans, I think.
You're like the two things I do a podcast about. I know those fans are aggressive.
Yeah, of course. You know what? On Twitter recently, like when the few times I've signed in, because I've mostly gone to Threads. By the way, this podcast is on Threads.
Yay!
Man, I've been seeing a lot of hate from Star Wars fans, just tearing Ahsoka apart. And having watched Ahsoka, but man, I've seen a lot of mean Star Wars fans.
No, you've not watched Ahsoka?
No, I haven't.
I think Ahsoka is one of my favorite Star Wars things. I love it. I really, really like it a lot. I think that's just the nature of fandom. And as fandoms get longer in the tooth, they just start to develop these sort of they start to ossify, I guess. They just start to get little permanent ways they feel about their thing, and they want it to be the way they've always known it. Obviously, shows have to grow and change, and you think about your favorite version of a thing, and a lot of times it's not the original. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's something that came later that changed the way it was being presented. Whatever. Talk about DC. Like everyone loves Batman the animated series. Like that's like a lot of people's, but it's just so toxic because I do too. It's my favorite, but comparing everything to it is just so weird because it's like that's your favorite because it's the first thing you saw, or like not necessarily the first, but it's like you were at an age where that was like very signature to you, and I do think it's wonderful, but like. You got to let it grow and change. The same way that someone who loved the 60s Batman, who watched that first, shouldn't hate on the animated series just because it's so different from what they grew up on, you know? And it can still be your favorite, but like you just got to leave room for growth and change. That's how you get a whole new generation of people loving Batman because they love the animated series. And at some point, we're going to get a whole new generation of Batman fans because they love whatever, you know? Whatever the new thing is.
It cracks me up because so many people like hold Batman the Animated Series and that entire canon up through Justice League Unlimited as like the best thing ever and don't want to accept anything that's different from it. But, you know, the animated series added tons of spokes to the wheel, as Kevin Smith said, because a lot of those villains didn't have backstories. And Paul Dini and Alan Burnett and those guys really like crafted some like beautiful psychological reasons for why these villains were who they were.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the format going forward. Within the comics, they adapted a lot of that. They grabbed a lot of that and pulled it into the mythos. And now everyone's like, well, you can't change that. That's perfect. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was changed from something else.
Yeah.
For the animated series.
I understand. Like, you can say, hey, I don't like this version as much. But, like, that's really all you're saying. Like, you're trying to be a stickler for a certain thing. I do think there are, like... there are certain ways you change a story. To play devil's advocate a little bit. There are certain ways you change a story that change its core so much that it doesn't feel like you're even telling the same story anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I get when you're a fan of something feeling betrayed by that. But, like, I don't know. I guess, yeah. I don't know. I like a good Elseworld story where everything's different. So, yeah. You just gotta, like, infinite diversity and infinite combinations, man.
Yeah. I think these days, like, I used to be pretty gatekeepery in certain ways. But these days, I feel like whenever I start to feel myself go that way, I could just feel my heart clogging, and I'm like, no, I'm turning to stone.
Yeah, exactly.
Embrace the creative. Embrace the creative license.
The one line I try to watch out for, and I don't know, this is not a hard line. The one thing that bothers me is when they use your fandom for a thing, but they change it so much to be unrecognizable, or even like against itself or against its own nature, to the point that, like, it feels like they're just using your fandom instead of, like... So I think there is a line where, like...
So Joker.
I mean, sure. Like, some people would say that. Yeah, like, it's not... That's a pretty good example. It's just stapling the IP of what you're doing on top of a story they just want to tell. Like, yeah. Joker could have been a completely original IP without the DC brand, and it could have just been about... It could have basically been like, what's that? It reminds me of Taxi Driver. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, it could have just been Taxi Driver. Could have been called Clown, and it could have just been the story of that guy doing the thing.
Yeah.
And then it wouldn't have needed the DC brand. But they grabbed the DC brand, stapled it on top to make it a $400 million movie instead of a $100 million movie. You know what I mean?
Well, it cost $50 million and it made over $1 billion.
Oh, did it make over $1 billion? I didn't realize it hit that big.
Todd Phillips is a genius for doing that, because in a day when movie studios don't want anything but big tentpole superhero bullshit, because that's the recognizable IP and the thing that everyone's going to for. Dude, like, Martin Scorsese movies, which he did produce Joker, but, like, those movies are going to, like, Netflix because theaters don't want them.
Right. Well, theaters don't want them, and also some of the big players like Marvel and Disney, DC, all that stuff, are muscling the little guy out by requiring, no matter what our movie does, no matter how popular it is, you have to have our movie in your theater for 9 weeks, occupying 5 theaters, shit like that. Like, all the IMAX screens have to be taken up by our movie. No room for anyone else. Like, they do stuff like that, which also bullies out the competition. It just makes there be less theater screens for other people. Yeah, I don't know. I enjoy it fine. But the thing that I worry about is just taking a brand and, like, I don't mind creative people making a creative decision with a character they love to, like, change it drastically. That doesn't bother me. What I don't like is corporations making, like, sort of just ham-fisted stapling on of an IP so that more people go see it. And it's not serving the audience. Like, just because it has that IP, fans feel beholden to go see it, even if it isn't in any way serving that IP. You could make whatever, you could staple an IP to it, you know. I don't know.
What would be an example of what you're talking about?
I mean, the Joker is a great example of what I'm talking about. but it doesn't really bother me. Like it's a one-off, and it doesn't. And we're about to get a sequel, and they do seem to be, at least with the fact of bringing in Harley Quinn and stuff. Like it seems like they're at least leaning on the canon a little bit.
I don't think that was an instance of like a corporation tacking on the IP. That was a brilliant strategy from the filmmaker who presented them with a Joker movie. That was basically what that is.
Yeah, no, I get that. I guess I do find it still a little cynical, even just from Todd Phillips, like doing that as a thing. I don't know where the line is exactly, but it's one of those things. It's just like hard to know. But sometimes it feels like you see it. You know, like, oh, this is going to be branded this, and then it doesn't really serve the same like storytelling function. It doesn't have the same spirit. It doesn't. It's hard to like. I guess as fans, we have to be flexible, but we also have to be a little vigilant to make sure they're not just like using us. You know what I mean? Like there's a little bit of like that's what I don't like. I don't mind them changing my story. I don't want to be toxic about them changing my story, but I also don't want to feel like I am so beholden to the thing that I love that I will just follow that corporation anywhere, no matter what they do. And then, so that's what I guess I'm trying to like. Oh, and if the story is bad, I can say the story is bad, and then the thing is bad without like whatever, without it. It's not bad to me because it didn't tell the story the way I'm used to it. It's bad to me because it's bad. Like there are things that are bad about it. Secret Invasion is a good example of that. I think that story is bad. Like they did a bad job. They grabbed a Marvel thing. I don't care at all that it's different than the original Secret Invasion. That doesn't bother me. I understand the reasons. I understand all that. But then they like ended it in such a bad way that didn't serve the characters, which I don't know if you've seen that yet.
I have not. I haven't seen.
They ended it in such a terrible way that didn't serve the characters. And it was all in service of creating new stories that can go off into the future, but did not serve the narrative of the 6 episodes they created. Like they had some really great threads running. And then the last episode, they were just like, all right, now a superhero fight and we make a character that can go into the movies. Like that's the story. Like it's like instead of like having resolution to the deeper threads that were going on, it just feels like, and that feels like probably one of the most, that's why I don't like it. It's one of the most cynical uses of the Marvel brand or whatever. And so, and the more and more I think on it, the more and more I sit with it, the more and more I feel that way. I've not come to terms with it. Like I still think in this, you know, we haven't talked about it because you haven't seen it, but like, I still think the first 4 episodes of that show are some wonderful television. Wonderful. And then episode 5, there's starting to be some cracks and like, wait, what's the story? What are they going to do? How are they going to wrap this up? This seems weird. And then episode 6 is like, what the hell? How are you going to wrap up these 4 episodes that establish so much interesting canon and characters and like so many connections to the larger universe, and then you're going to end it with that? What is going on right now? Like it just feels like a complete betrayal. Like, but yeah, and it does feel like I'm watching this show. You put me down in front of it with some amazing actors playing amazing roles, but then you as a corporation decided you needed the story to go this way, and so you did that thing instead of like serving the characters that we're all here for. So that's a good example of it, I think. So yeah, it's not about changing things for me. I don't mind changing things, but I do mind like sort of cynical uses of the fandom when you're not actually there to serve the fandom at all, you know? Yeah. Anyway.
Right.
There's any other feedback?
Oh yeah.
Let's get to it.
Andre Sparks says, hey guys, just wanted to share a few thoughts. 1, I am glad Prodigy found a new home. I introduced Star Trek to my kids with Prodigy and they loved it, so I'm glad it's back. I hope this will get them hooked and then we can continue Trek together. They do get confused when I tell them they can't watch Lower Decks. 2, you guys were talking about what Badgie or Goodgie should look like in live action, and my first thought was Miss Minutes animation.
Yeah.
I think it would be perfect, especially just appearing out of nowhere.
Yeah, totally. I'm 100% on board with that.
Yeah, I think I don't think I want like a real, like a realified version of Badgie or Goodgie. I think that would be creepy.
Yeah, just animated.
It was just like a Starfleet insignia with like a weird human face on it. Like,
we don't need that.
Yeah. Willem Gallo sent us something here.
Now, what I would love to see is a later, like, let's say it's a Lower Decks live action episode for some reason, and they bring up Badgie, and it looks like that, like a very terrible, like, I don't know, Cronenbergian like face coming out of a badge, like just terrible, and then he goes, I don't like that. Let's change the visuals on that. And they turn it back down to like 2D animated. Like,
yeah, that'd be fun. I kind of imagine it would look like Armin Shimmerman in the on
the box or whatever, on the
Betazoid gift box.
Yeah.
We got one from Willem Gallo. We haven't heard from him in a while. He's got an email that he's titled, "Don't Let Dave Take Your Cake."
I won't. I won't.
Yeah. Willem says, "Hey, Matt, have you heard those TOS reviews Dave does with Effie? Their chemistry is poppin', man, and I think that MF trying to edge you out. Better watch out, brother. That's a joke."
I love that he's Willem?
Willem, yeah.
I love that Willem is essentially like complimenting you and Effie's episodes. And then instead of complimenting you, he decided to write in to warn me.
Yeah. Willem continues, "I think the funniest thing about Lower Decks is listening to you guys try to sound like you had a good time watching it." What? I enjoy it quite a bit. I love it. I love Lower Decks.
No, I think I know what he's talking about. And it's not that we're trying to figure out that we enjoyed it. It's that we're trying to figure out what to talk about. As I've said forever on talking about comedy is hard. Because you're either overanalyzing a joke or you are just saying that was funny. Like, that's the entirety of the episode. So it's our enjoyment of the show is intact. Our trying to podcast about a comedy is hard. And so, like, but a lot of times there's not enough dense Star Trek stuff to talk about. So it is just us. And that's kind of what we've been talking about it lately. And I think when these episodes work best is basically we talk about a little bit about overarching and then we just throw out quotes because it's fun. Like, it's fun to just bounce around quotes because it is fun to just go, that was funny. It's not so fun to overanalyze jokes. So it's actually like, it's been a discussion in the behind the show of us going like, how do we cover this and make it fun for us and for the audience? And we're sort of finding our voice there, but it is not easy to talk about a comedy. I think.
Gallo continues and says, "Maybe I'm wrong and y'all just aren't as excited about it as you were Picard season 3. I'm probably just a dick."
Oh, I think that's probably true. I'm definitely like not as, I don't have the same expectations on Lower Decks as I do for a Picard season 3. Like, I don't sit down and go, this is going to change my fandom. This is going to be the end of a character that I love. You know, it's more like, hey, it's the weekly Star Trek fix. Let's sit down and enjoy it. It's not like, I mean, it shows, again, in our podcasting, like during Star Trek, during Picard season 3, I think we did 2 episodes every week because we did like a feedback episode where we talk about like theories and craft, blah, 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 blah. And then we'd do an episode that was a reaction because there was just enough content there. So yeah, I don't think that's, I don't think the two are like kind of the same sort of spectrum for us. This is our weekly Star Trek fix that is fun, and it's harder to podcast about, like, just in general. And then, like, Picard is, like, dream podcasting. I mean, we get to talk about, like, yeah, so I think the excitement level is more about what our level of podcast fun. I don't know. I guess I was more excited for Picard Season 3, that's for sure.
Me too.
Like, and I get more excited for Discovery because it's like, it feels like it's moving the narrative forward more. Like, that's just kind of what I enjoy talking about. But it doesn't mean I don't enjoy Lower Decks for what it is, which is like a comedy to sit down and enjoy, you know?
Yeah, I think I enjoy podcasting about Lower Decks more than Discovery.
That's cool. I was kind of picking Discovery because I think of the live action stuff, Discovery is probably right now my least favorite to cover, but I still get more excited to cover it, more excited to podcast about it because there's just more narrative. There's more stuff to, I don't know. It feels like, I mean, it's the freaking 31st century or whatever. Like, it's kind of fun to talk about, like, all the stuff that they're trying to build into canon way out in the distance, you know? There's a ton of fun speculation we can do about that. Whereas Lower Decks feels like reference, laugh, which is great, but it's not, it's not what I like to podcast about necessarily as much.
Except they just, this episode, they just fixed a big problem with TNG's canon.
Yeah, which is awesome. I love that they can do that. I really do. I really, really do. That's so good.
And that will forever make my heart happy, remembering, like, when I watched TNG again, just, like, chuckling and going, nope, that was a conspiracy.
Yeah, you get to be the conspiracy theorist now. All these people who only watch the live action stuff, you get to inform them in your conspiracy brain self. Nope. That was the Vendorians.
All right, so we've got one last one from Stu Little. Titled F.U. Cave. First of all, Dave, don't you ever do that creepy ASMR talking directly to me thing again. You want to send me a message? You do it using the diary we share, okay? We share nothing. Cave rhymes with Dave. Isn't that interesting? No, it's not, Stu.
It is to me.
You're slipping in your old age.
Man.
Step away from the crystals.
So self-deprecating over here.
Stu says, when Tindy started talking about the time they got infected with the rage virus, I thought this was going to be a weird send-up of a clip show, using clips of things that never happened. Which is sort of what we got, just longer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought they were going to do clip shows, and I was a little worried.
No, I think it was a clip show.
Just like a proper clip show.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah.
This was like a community clip show.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Casting the Vendorians with Freeman and Shax's voice actors is really distracting. It was so obvious I was expecting that whole thing to be a training exercise test for Boimler. I didn't think about it, but, that was one of the things I loved about the Vendorians, like the moral tests.
Mm-hmm. Our moral test worked. And I liked that even this one was a Vendorian plot as well. I didn't expect that. Like, I don't know why I wouldn't have, but I really did not expect this to be another moral test by the Vendorians.
Yeah, there's some creepy bastards, man. Stu says, Nebula from Guardians of the Galaxy as a cave guide? That's a surprise. I didn't think about that until just now.
You're totally right, though. Yeah. She has like an eye thing, like a little implanted eye thing looking thing as well. That's really funny.
Get consent next time you want to impregnate someone with a clone baby. I get it was a desperate situation, but they don't really acknowledge how uncool that was. Just fixate on how Rutherford didn't mention it.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I actually was also thinking about the Vendorians in the same way. This show can get away with like a weird, let's not analyze the morals of the situation at all, which is like what I love about Star Trek is analyzing the moral situations a lot of times. And so it is a weird it kind of goes back to the previous email. Like, it is like part of the reason Lower Decks is harder to talk about, because I want to fixate on the fact that that was not consensual and it was weird, and like Rutherford should be upset. But also, I want to fixate on the fact that the Vendorians, they use them as this like morality tale, weird god people, but then they also talk about how they want to lay their egg sacs in you and watch you scream to death. Like it's like, but they don't deal with the fact that that's like morally inconsistent. Like, why are they these like moral arbiters, but also they want to like make you stare at each other's faces while they lay their egg sacs or something like that? I can't remember exactly what they said. It's like in any other Trek, I would have mentioned that to talk about it, but this show just breezes past the morality of the situations.
Yeah. I want more Vendorians, though.
Yeah. Maybe they can explain how their morality is consistent, and when they're judging us, when they want to, do weird spider things to us.
Mm-hmm. Stu says, when did asshole become a non-censorable curse word? Most stuff that isn't R-rated seems to avoid it. The mid-90s. Over here, NYPD Blue was the show that they could be on network television and say asshole and say shit and douchebag, and it was because they were on after 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. Eastern time, and the world kind of goes with most of that most of the time. But this is streaming, so they just kind of cut out the F word for some reason. They say all the other things.
Yeah. Streaming and I guess it is strange that for many years it mattered what time you were on, and now nothing's on at a given time. So like, how do you make those decisions?
Yeah, so streaming is 9 p.m.
Streaming is 9 p.m.
Yep. Stu says, I'll buy that they can regrow legs, since McCoy could regrow a kidney with just a pill. All right. Stu continues, who gives the Vendorians the authority to test people all the time? The Q should test them and see how they like it. Unless that's their kink, in which case, no, they don't deserve that. Anyway, this was fun and a good way to take a few throwaway concepts and do short stories on them without getting tired. Somehow I expected a bit more drama between the main characters and the framing device, since they opened with a conspicuous acknowledgement that Boimler and Mariner haven't been paired up on something for a while. There was tension over the situation, but I figured there'd be some underlying thing too, and no, not a penis-related thing, Dave. What? No mystery ship stuff at all this week, which is fine now they've established that those are abductions instead of just attacks, so they don't need to do another instance of it for now. As we come up to the final 2 episodes of the season, I would like to note this has been a pretty strong season so far, which isn't always a guarantee 4 years in, but they keep finding ways to do fun and fresh spins on Trek tropes. Thank you, Stu.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think it's always hard for a show to could be fresh in its 4th year, and like a comedy even more so. As we've talked about, the Lower Decks episodes like can use up those jokes, and they have to keep getting kind of fresh and different takes on these jokes. And so yeah, it's tough, but I feel like they're pulling it off.
Yeah, and by the way, I do like the idea that the Vendorians have a kink, and that everything that they're doing is their kink. And they are just trying to, love us with their love language. Basically, they're just trying to show us how they want to be loved. Like, will you non-consensually lay an egg sac in my throat?
Oh, gross. He said it wasn't penis related, Dave.
Well, no, that was a different statement.
I know.
There was tension over the situation. But I figured there'd be some underlying thing too, and not a penis-related thing. So the underlying thing.
I know. I was just doing the callback.
Right.
It wasn't meant to be eternally consistent.
I'm sorry you don't like when I speak to you, Stu.
Chill untrue.
Live long. Prosper. Think of me.
Thank you for listening to the Star Trek Universe Podcast, a Stranded Panda production. If you'd like to hear more from David C. Roberson, check out the DC On Screen podcast or maladjusted.tv for his web videos. If you'd like to hear more from Matthew Carroll, check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast or listen to his music. Just search for Matthew Carroll anywhere you get music.